I heard you were here to learn about probability. You are in the right place. Before we start this unit, I just want to make sure that you have a few skills down. You're going to need them throughout the unit, and the quicker you master and review them, the better off you're going to be. So over here on this side, we have a skills check, right? I just want to make sure that you remember how to add and subtract fractions. When you're adding and subtracting fractions, you need to make sure that you get a common denominator. When you're multiplying and dividing fractions, you do not need a common denominator. Sorry. Okay. So for instance, here when we are dividing fractions, you keep the same first fraction, you change the sign from division to multiplication, and you flip the second fraction. When you're multiplying fractions, you do numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. Remember that any whole number can be written as a fraction by putting it over 1. Okay, so pause the video and work through questions number 1 and 2, and then you can check your answers to the right. Welcome back. Pause the video, take a look at your answers. How'd you do? Are you ready to go? Cool. I am also ready to go. All right, let's do a little probability investigation. So the study of probability helps us to understand the degree of uncertainty of something happening. So we use probability to make decisions because it helps us quantify randomness. What is the likelihood of this event occurring? That's what probability does for us. Let me walk you through a simulation, and you could perhaps take this idea of a simulation and use it in your own IA, right? Let's say you wanted to simulate a certain number of outcomes. You could use a dice or another random generator in order to help you figure out what's going on. So take a look at the simulation that I set up for you so that way you can see how a simulation could possibly work. So at lunchtime every Monday, Andy and Mose play each other at chess. They only have time to play just 2 games in their regular lunchtime competition. Andy is a little bit better at chess than Mose. So go ahead and highlight Andy is a little bit better at chess than Mose. How would we show that Andy is better at chess than Mose through probability? We would show that Andy wins more games than Mose by having the probability of Andy winning being higher than the probability of Mose winning. So over the course of a school year, 36 weeks, will Andy win more competitions than Mose? We can simulate this situation with a dice. Why are we using a dice? Because a dice is random. The rolls of each dice are independent. So that's why we're going to use the dice as our simulation item. So in the simulation, we're going to let 1, and these are referring to the faces on the die, right? So that's 1, that's 2, and then that's 3, 4, so on and so forth, right? Every time you see one of these 4 faces, that means Andy is winning a chess game, right? So his probability of winning, or the probability of Andy, would be 4 out of 6. Why 6? 6 sides on a die. Mose, on the other hand, right? We're going to let a 5 and a 6 correspond to Mose winning. So every time you see one of these, this means the probability of Mose winning would be 2 out of 6. Okay? So if you'll notice, the probability of Andy winning and the probability of Mose winning are complements of one another, right? I could find the other's probability by subtracting it from 1. Cool. Why? Because there are only 6 out of 6 possible sides that you could roll on a dice. 4 represent Andy winning, 2 represent Mose winning. Why does this choice of outcomes represent Andy being better at chess than Mose? Well, the probability of Andy winning is equal to 4 out of 6 versus the probability of Mose winning, which is 2 out of 6. Since this is more likely, right, the probability would occur more often than Mose, we would say that this represents that Andy is better at chess than Mose. So how much is Andy better than Mose in this situation? Well, if Andy is better than Mose, we would put the larger one out front, subtract the smaller one, and we would find that Andy's probability of winning over Mose is 4 out of 6. What other choice of outcomes would also suggest that Andy is better than Mose? So let's say you're setting up your simulation, right? You could let maybe sides 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 represent that Andy wins the game, and only side 6 represents that Mose wins the game. Whatever configuration you come up with, you would just have to show that Andy winning is more likely than Mose winning. What if you had a dice with 12 sides? What different combinations would represent Andy being better than Mose? So again, you would just have to make sure that if you want to show that Andy is better than Mose, 6 or more sides, it's kind of like a confusing way to say it. We could just say 6 or more sides would represent Andy winning, and then less than 6 would represent Mose winning. All right, so let's do a little investigation, right? We will first investigate what happens on Monday. So first you throw the dice. Here I have a little QR code that you can scan to open up a dice simulator. I know a lot of us don't have dice kicking around at home, right? So you can use that. And let me just, here we go. It is right here. Boop, boop, doo. All right, here's my dice roller. So throw the dice. A roll of 1, 2, or 3 means Andy wins. A roll of 5 or 6 means Mose wins. Record the result of the first game on the result sheet. So I'm going to roll 1 virtual dice. I'm going to hit roll dice, and I got a 4. So the first game was won by Andy because I rolled a 4. Let's do the second game because they play 2 games on a Monday, right? Roll again. I got a 5. So that means Mose won. If there's a tie, we would say the competition winner was neither. There has to be a clear winner, meaning both people have to win, right? Let's try again for the next day. All right, I got a 6, so that means Mose won. I got a 3, that means Andy won. Again, no clear winner. So you would keep doing this. I want to show you an example where where there's a winner. Okay, so I got a 5 and then a 1. So the 5 was Mose, the 1 is Andy. Oh my gosh, okay. Nobody won that one. Let's try again. I got a 4, that was Andy. And then I got a 2, that was Andy. Hallelujah. Okay, Andy has finally won that competition. So go ahead and complete the simulation, and then we'll talk at the end.